We're live. Hey guys, thank you so much. Welcome back to the Lift Ed Book Festival. And today we have an most amazing panel. Our 2 o'clock panel is up for you right now. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Jonterri.
Hi, I'm Jonterri Gadson. I'm very excited to be hosting this panel. I'm a former creative writing professor, a poet, and a TV writer. So first, I would just like to go around to each of the panelists and have them introduce themselves. And then, yeah, let's do that first. So I'll just call your names out as they go on my screen. Let's start with James.
Hey everybody, my name is James Ramos. I'm the author of The Wrong Kind of Weird and Daniel Deconstructed, which just came out February 6th, I think. So very happy to be here.
Nice, thanks James. Kimberly?
Hi everybody, I'm Kimberly Lemming, the author of That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon and That Time I Got Drunk and Needed a Love Potion At a Werewolf. My next book, which is also a mouthful, comes out next month.
Oh, what is that mouthful? Can you say it?
That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Human.
Okay, I was hoping it started that way. Great. Jessica.
Hi, my name is Jessica Lewis, and I'm the author of Bad Witch Burning and Monstrous, and I also have a line of middle grade cat books, starting with Meow or Never. And my latest release will come out in September, which is called Cool Cat.
Excellent, thanks. Reese.
I'm Riss. I'm Neilson.
Riss, sorry, I just had it in my head.
Sorry,
go ahead.
It's okay. And I'm the author of Deep in Providence and I'm Not Supposed to Be in the Dark. They're my YA novels, and I have an adult romance coming out in June called A Love Like the Sun.
Nice, thank you. And Shirlene?
Hey guys, my name is Shirlene Obuobi. I'm the author of On Rotation, and my second novel, Between Friends and Lovers, comes out July 30th.
Great. All right, so I know the theme of this panel is like romance, right? And so just from listening to all of your different titles, the works that you've done, we've got a lot of different perspectives on romance. So if we could just have you talk for a little bit, each of you, about what your unique perspective is on writing love and romance, and how that shows up in your work. Whoever wants to start.
I can go. I can start. So for me, my relationship with romance has been like evolving, especially like in recent times, with just like me trying to like understand and define like my queerness. And I recently was finding out that I was on the aromantic spectrum, and so like romance for me has always been something that I approached like a little bit more like scientifically than like feeling it. So to be able to like relate and to create characters who are going through, these romantic situations, it helped me understand it, I think, a little bit more in depth, but also some of the nuance for it as well. So it's been a very unique, I feel like, journey as opposed to, with romance, and not necessarily experiencing it the way that most people do, but it's also been very enlightening. And from what I've been hearing, like people have been like, oh yeah, I could relate to that too. So it was a nice learning experience as well.
Love that. Yeah, that's when I looked up all of your work. I was like, oh wow, all of these perspectives are so important and matter and are going to make people feel seen and heard. Kimberly.
So I've always been reading romance. It's always been one of my favorite genres, and especially fated mates. So when I started writing romance, one of the things I wanted to focus on is not only fated mates, but why those two characters specifically end up together. So instead of just being like, yes, we love each other now, I like to focus on the banter in between them and how they interact with each other, because it's so fun to me to see how different couples communicate.
Nice. I love that. Jessica.
Like James, I'm so glad you said that you're on the aromantic spectrum, because I am on the asexual spectrum. So for romance, I used to think that I hated romance because I couldn't understand what the characters were feeling, because I had never felt that before. And so after I grew up a little bit and I realized I could, I had a label, then I was like, oh, okay, so it's nothing that I don't hate romance. It's just that I need to find a romance that fits what I think of romance should be. So that's my relationship to reading romance. And as far as writing it, I usually only write sapphic romance. And then also I focus on the emotional aspect of why the characters are together and never like the spicy parts because I don't understand that part. So I always I like Kimberly said, I want to see like why these two people are good for each other.
Nice, thanks. Riss?
So something I have been exploring recently in my romance is how chronically ill people find love and move and navigate through the world in love and dating and romance. I am chronically ill, and I just feel like I don't read enough romance with chronically ill people like me, and I don't know, I just want to write more of it. I mean, I love reading Talia and Tia because of that, but I don't know. So yeah, that's my relationship to it right now. Just trying to add some of that in there.
Nice, I love that. And Shirlene?
I love doing character work. And so my favorite thing to do is to create and to think of like complicated human beings, right, who bring their own baggage, their own traumas, their own experiences to the table, and how they can come together, and journey alongside each other, and eventually in love. So a lot of my romances, if we're going to talk about purity of the genre, probably like lean general fiction, because so much of it is about the internal and external work that my characters are doing to get to the point where they can be together.
Got it. Yeah, thank you. Like, I love hearing, yes. I'm glad everyone now gets to hear what I researched, was like, okay, this is going to be a great panel. And so I want to hear more about that, because I think what's so exciting to me is I think when people think about romance, we're probably likely thinking about heteronormative, like, white cisgender people in romance. And so I'm interested to know, like, who were your inspirations? Were there inspirations for you as far as your identity? Like, what inspired you? And then how do you actually go about like showing up in your own work, if that makes sense?
Same order?
No, I would say taken. You can go ahead.
All you.
Someone go ahead.
Oh, are we going in the same order, or?
Rena?
Oh yeah, yeah, go for it.
Wait,
I thought
is
somebody was
everyone?
talking. Was it you, Riz?
Oh no, it wasn't me, but I'll go first.
Okay, go ahead.
I think before this I wasn't writing romance, so I think probably first like Kennedy Ryan was like the first, like before I Let Go. And I explore like a lot of grief too in my writing, so I think that book really pulled me into this genre. And I also think so that between that and then I would say like maybe 7 Days in June, for what I said, like just like seeing the chronically ill like main character and like still like deserving of love, like getting love, and like working through that. So yeah, I think I answered the question. They've been inspiring for me.
Nice. Next.
So I think most of my inspiration actually came from manga and anime, just because I'm a huge blurred. So I love that kind of stuff. And even though I love fantasy romance, I often find myself side-eyeing a lot of the female characters for the decisions they make. So I think I approach the way my characters react to things in much like Black women in horror movies, which is like, of course I'm not going down that dark tunnel. No, we're not doing that clearly stupid thing. Now I gotta find new ways to get them in trouble.
Fun.
Sure, I'll go. So similarly to Riss, like Tia Williams, 7 Days in June, for those super complicated characters. But I actually probably was more of a like sci-fi fantasy reader before I really got into romance. And I think one thing that a lot of sci-fi fantasy does, like not like outside of the romantasy genre, which I think is like very different, is that when like a lot of the characters tend to have relationships, they often aren't necessarily you can tell a lot of times that the characters deeply love and care about each other without necessarily needing the spice, right? Like, and you understand the complicated backgrounds, like you often like maybe they're from warring like peoples or whatever. And I loved that. I like loved that journey to get to that point. And so I think a lot of that kind of inspires my work. I also read a lot of general fiction too before, which is probably why I get that lean. But yeah, I love like I'm just gonna steal Rissa's answer basically. Like some of my favorite authors in romance are gonna be like the Kennedy Ryans, right? Like because of those complicated, like heart wrenching, like life stories, the journeys that you're following the characters on. So.
Nice, thanks. James or Jessica?
Yeah, I can go. I'm in the same boat. Like sci-fi fantasy was like where I got all of my information from. The good and the bad examples. You know, I grew up with a lot of like Star Trek and just like seeing the different types of relationships. That was my first like introduction to like ethical non-monogamy and just like all these other like sorts of things I didn't even realize that they were exploring until like later. So I'm fortunate that I had that, you know, as a base to fall back on. And then just you know, for me being on the aromantic spectrum, like I didn't realize that the romantic plot was happening a lot of times when I was watching things. So for me, it was just like a character study in a way. I was just like, okay, these people, you can see the beginning of this relationship, how it evolves, and then the culmination. I was like, oh, that's nice. I did not see any of that coming. So when I started writing it, I had to like figure out how those things were structured. So I really like slow burns. Jane Austen was like one of my earliest like loves, like Pride and Prejudice is, especially the 2005 one. When I started watching that, I was like, that's the ticket there. So like everything I write, I'm just like, how can I like infuse some of this like slow burnness to it? Because that is just that's it for me.
Nice. How about you, Jessica?
Similar to Kimberly, I love manga and anime, especially anime. They really know how to do a romance well. And I mean, like,
Yeah, they do.
I don't know what it is. They just really know what they're doing over there. So I used to watch a lot of romance, but I really struggled to find romance books that I liked. And I remember it very distinctly. I read You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. And I was like, that's it. I just don't want to read about straight white people. I want to read some queer books. And so after that, I've been reading a bunch of queer romances, and that's my niche. That's what I like to read. That's what I like to write. But that book was very formative for me. That just unlocked my my journey into romance.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah, I love hearing like all of your different perspectives again. And so I wonder, because a lot of times people will be like, oh, okay, for instance, it'll be like, oh, if this is the main character is someone who's chronically ill, then this is niche, right? Instead of it being universal experiences expressed through someone who's chronically ill. So I want to hear about like how it's been for you, like reaching your audience, right? And like being able to define your audience maybe as not just the same identity of the book. Does that make sense? Like, how has it been for you navigating that?
Do you want me to go first?
Good.
I'll go first on this. I think my book hasn't came out yet with my chronically ill main character, but one thing I have already noticed is that I am trying to have like my team include some of it, but like not be pigeonholed into like that's just it. Like I don't want to just be known as like, oh, the author that writes chronically ill main characters and that's it. Like I want it to reach a wider audience, but I still want like that audience to be seen, to be heard, to know about it. So it's like it's really tough to navigate, honestly. Like I don't even know where to start on it because it's very important to me, right? Like even now, like I'm single, right? So like just dating in general and all that stuff, like and like thinking about love and romance is it's not even just in my work, it's in my life too. But I'm just like I just don't want to just be seen as that, right? So I don't know, it's difficult to navigate. I think like as far as the writing goes, I really tried to like I try to not make it the whole book, if that makes sense. But it's really crucial to the book too. It's so complicated. I don't really have like a direct answer, just to say like it's very complicated. And I feel like also it's something that's like hard to like market, right? Like it's something that's a little difficult to market because you don't want to be like pigeonholed. I feel like and me and Shirlene have had many talks about this. I feel like a lot of books get pigeonholed, right? Like it's like what I want to see is like I don't want to see like say for instance like the best black book, right? I just want like black books to be included in the best books, like all together. So I think like that is something like I'm like thinking about now, even with my book in the chronically ill space. So yeah, that's my answer for that.
Excellent. I want to hear some, and if anybody has even tips on like navigating that since Riss is like waiting in soon. God, Shirlene.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Like I have a lot to say about this. So I'm a dark-skinned Black female physician. My characters are often that. And I always tell people that that's because that's what I know. That's the experience I have. I'm too lazy to do more research. And that white girl journalists write about white girl journalists all the time and writers all the time, and nobody asks them, is this you, right? So a deep like element of this for me is a couple things. I think when you write from a marginalized experience, like almost any marginalized experience, right? But especially if you're including any intersections, a few things happen. Number one, people are so hungry to be seen that they sometimes forget that just because we share identities doesn't mean our experiences are monoliths. Like we're still very much human. So just by nature of me writing a character that someone might share an identity with, that doesn't necessarily mean they'll relate to that character or like them or like want to read about them, right? And the vice versa, like there are people who like, even though I can go on a whole long thing about how sometimes people read books by marginalized authors as like a checklist item, right? There are also people who like genuinely want to immerse in our stories and like will find like understand that it's a human experience, right? And so I think there are a few challenging elements. Like through traditional publishing, there's the element of like the editing process, right? Keeping things true to an experience, right? There's a lot of subtleties that I like because I fold into my characters' experiences that are things that like a Black woman will experience, right? That maybe someone else might not understand. Like my second book starts with my main character facing off with a crying white woman, and like her reaction is like shit, I sometimes have to find myself at the editing table, kind of fighting for certain things. That maybe my team, which we just don't have a super diverse workforce in publishing, doesn't quite understand. And it sometimes means that there's things I have to kind of give up or things that I have to make more subtle. But similarly, like there's the other thing that me and Riss also often talk about is the blood in the water thing, right? Where you talk a little bit too much about the experience and then that's what they want to hear. Because then they see, instead of wanting to read about a romance or sell or market a romance, they want to sell a struggle story, right? And so it's this balance of trying to keep the experience true to like my vision, and also not give in to kind of like tap dancing for a capitalistic agenda that likes to feed on our misery.
No, that's great. Yes, thank you. Yeah. James.
I went long.
Yeah, no, that was, I don't think I agree 100%. I don't think I can say, like, add anything to that, really. I feel like it is a balancing act, like everyone has said so far, because you want to be authentic. And for me, like, it's very important. I want to create characters. Like, I had that back and forth as well. Like, I didn't want to make, like, an issues book. I think they're important, but, like, I just wanted to have Black Boy Joy and not, any, caveats or anything like that. And it was a really difficult balance. Like I kept second guessing myself because I was like, I want to share this experience. I want these characters to be in this book. I want to talk about these characters. And you want, when you're writing for an audience, I think for me, it was knowing that other people are going to read it. I just had to make sure that like, I didn't want to compromise anything. I wanted to tell the story for the people that I want to tell it. And especially like with my first one, it was not only Black and brown kids, but like nerdy kids and queer kids. So like, to take the people, like growing up for me, a lot of times like in sitcoms and things, like you have the Black character as the side character or the comic relief, whatever. So I was like, I want to take these characters and make them the narrator, because that's who I was growing up. That's who I grew up with. So, but it was a lot of back and forth in my head. Like, am I overdoing this just for the sake of, you know what I mean? I didn't want to be used as oh, come, February, like I didn't want it to be wielded that way unless I chose it. So it had to be on my terms. And like you said as well, like going, with the editing, there were certain like words or things I would put in there. And I'm like, no, I know it. I know what that means, but this is how it's said. This is what that actually means. So I do want to leave that in there. So it was just like knowing when to stand my ground and say, this is authenticity, or, when people would, I had a question about one of the characters on my book, like their appearance. And I was just like, okay, that's, it was weird how easy things slipped into, casual racism and colorism and things. So dealing with that just to try and get the book finished was a struggle. But I think at the end of it, just trying to stay authentic to what it was that I was wanting to do and who I was writing the book for. I think I was able to like prevail, at least in that.
Kimberly, Jessica, anything to add there? Or?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I love writing the characters I do so much is because I did get tired of being shoehorned into the strong Black woman role. I wanted my characters to just be enjoying their lives. And a lot of times, they're not the best and brightest in their field, but they still are the ones that are able to fall in love and save the day. A lot of times it's not them that needs help in the book, it's the men that come and find them. And I just love being able to explore that with different characters of different sizes, different shades. And a lot of times they're not having a big to do about their life. They don't have to be strong. They want to drink wine with their friends and go on an adventure, I guess, if they have to. But it's just a lot of fun.
Jessica, anything?
Yeah, I everything that everyone said is like really great. So I don't have much to add, but I think I've avoided being pigeonholed by just being extremely chaotic. So I write horror, I write fantasy, I write romance. Like I have a pure romance coming out next year. And then I also write contemporary middle grade. So my agent is just like, oh boy, spin the wheel. What's just gonna send me next time? and I do try to get my characters to they're not often like me. I put a piece of myself in every character, but I do really try to mix it up. So my main character of my debut was very much like me as a kid, except she had a very horrible temper, and I'm like so mild mannered. Like I don't have the stuff that she does I would never do. And then my character for Monstrous, my most recent release, she's an athlete. I don't run unless anyone's chasing me. So I think that has helped me to avoid the pigeonhole problem by just writing all types of different characters, all types of different genres, and that helps for the reader not to see me as the author, and then they're able to see the character for themselves. And then we can talk about the racism in publishing all day, because I have never had a copy editor who was not racist in some way. Like never. Out of 8 books, I have never had it. So it really is a problem. Also, another problem is like very poor, poor rep. Like I had a copy editor tell me that if they're so poor, how come they have candles? And it's like,
wow,
y'all, like, what is going on over there in New York? Like, we can buy candles.
Candles at the dollar store.
So it's rampant. Like the problems are rampant in traditional publishing. So yeah, I just wanted to agree with everyone. It is a huge issue. And then I also thought about the Goodreads Choice Awards. How I think you were saying, Jonterri, that we want the books to be just books and not like Black books or the best queer books or whatever. But if you look at the Goodreads Choice Awards in the romance category, every single book is straight and white. Every single one of them. So we have so far to go. It's not even funny. Like right now we need those categories or no one will ever see our books because marketing's not doing it. So yeah.
No, that's enlightening. I think for me, what opened my ideas to like I don't know how to say it, like the universality of like different marginalized experiences, even from my own, was like when the first time I read like a novel from the perspective of a queer person coming out. And I was able to relate to that as someone who's not queer, but I related to the idea of being your authentic self and the the struggle to do that, right? And so I was like, oh, well, what does this person from Austria, what is, what are these people? What do all these different experiences have for me in them? And I'm hoping that that's like a view that spreads. I want to take the opportunity too, since we have you all here, you've done the thing that a lot of people can't do, which is you've finished at least one, at least one novel and successfully gone on to publish it. Can you talk about your own process? Like, how are you developing these characters? Like, what does it look like for you to go from development through to like the publishing process? I know brief answers, but just what is that like for you?
I'm not gonna lie, you're gonna ask somebody else. I've never had a consistent book or way to write at all, really, ever. So anyone else, take the floor.
Well, no, I think that's interesting too. So what do you think varies? Like when you go into like for me, I know sometimes I'll be like facing a blank page being like, I don't know how I ever did this before. Like maybe I've already done the best that I can ever do.
Yep.
So maybe can you mention like what is it for you when you start a new project? Where's your mind at?
Well, with my first book, it was really just something I was doing for fun. I didn't think it was going to be like my foreversies thing. And so I pretty much just sat down every day and wrote any thought that came to mind. And it was like done in 2 months. I had a great time. The next one was just like, okay, well, now I have to stay consistent with the first one, but different. What are we going to do? I kind of want an eldritch horror in there somewhere. And so I kind of just like paced around my yard for a couple of weeks and then just wrote one version, be like, it's not goofy enough yet. Went back, did more. And then it's like eventually at the end of all that shenanigans and a few bottles of wine, I had book 2. And then book 3, similar issue. I think I sort of just like wandered off on a trip in the woods every day, just like take my dog for a long walk, think about what I wanted to do, watched an obscene amount of Ghibli movies because that's just where my head was at. And so I'm like, you know what? I want a soft adventure this time. They're going to go on a little quest. They're going to go see a unicorn. I just want something soft and fun, but also maybe zombies because I got bored.
Nice. Thanks.
I am like the total opposite. I'm a very like methodical, scientific at heart person. My major in college was actually animal science. So my brain is very science wired. I'm a hardcore plotter. I have an idea. I write down the idea. I come up with the characters. I write down every single piece of the book before I start. And then the actual drafting process takes like a month. And I have very little editing to do because I've done it all ahead of time. So I am very fast, usually. But then I like what you said, James. Every single book, I open the blank page and I'm like, well, how do I do this again? And I have to go back and reread my notes. It's like, okay, yeah, I did X, Y, and Z last time. Let me do that again. That happens to me every single time. Every single book, I am like, I don't know how to do it. So I have like amnesia. So yeah, hardcore plotter, and then I'm able to go from there.
I wish I were fast. Oh, did you?
No, you can go.
Okay. My process, I'm very pragmatic. I grew up with not a lot of like support for the writing thing that I was trying to do, so I had to learn how to like write on the go. So I would have either little notebooks hidden on my person or in my like under my pillow or something, or I just had to learn to like draft in my head until I got home and I could type it up or something. So I don't really have a process, just whatever gets the job done. And like you said, I every time it's like, all right, we're gonna do this again, and I'm just like, why do I even like do this? Like about like halfway through, I'm just like, this is not worth the suffering that I'm going through. But then I get to like the end of the book and I get to say like the end, and it's just like there's no better feeling than that. And I'm just like, that's why I keep doing this to myself. And then I do it again. So, but no, with so the Wrong Kind of Weird, it took me like a year or so to write that because I didn't have a contract or anything, and I actually was just writing it for fun. Once it was done, I put it aside and almost forgot about it. And then with The Energy Constructed, that was book 2 of a contract. So they were like, okay, now that the first one's done, can you get us a draft in like a couple months? And I'm just like, I have never done a draft in a couple of months, like ever in my life. First drafts are not, and then to like have to give my first draft to my editor was I was just super apologetic. I'm like, I am so sorry for the garbage that you're about to read. I hope this doesn't end our relationship professionally because, oh my goodness. So it was definitely a learning thing this time around to have that many eyes on the project that early on. I hope that next time I'm faster. I don't feel like it. I think I just got through on adrenaline that time, so we'll see. But it's done, so I'm just like, all right, cool. I survived that. So
That's the important part. You survived.
right.
I think for me, I'm so jealous of the plotters, because I am a mess. I am also a mess. Mine usually starts with like just a scene. So like in my head, like there'll be a scene where I'm like, oh, I can't unthink this thing. So I need to like somehow write it. So and that's it. That's all I'll have is a scene, and like the characters like come to me like they're just magical or something. They just like come to me, and I start building. But my drafts are also like super garbage trash fire, zero drafts. I just sent one off. I literally thought I thought I was never gonna get done with this book like ever, and I just sent one off, and I said the same thing. I wrote like a paragraph. Please forgive me. Like I hope you don't like. I hope you believe in me still, because I know this is horrible. But one thing I will say that makes my process I don't think it's unique. I know people that do this, but I feel like a lot of people haven't heard of it. So I will say I reverse draft. I reverse plot. So like I'll write my garbage draft and then I will reverse outline. That's what it's called. And then I will just like go through the whole thing and I will write every single thing that I put down and then I will plot from there. So like my first drafts are always a zero. And then I will build like my real first draft off of a reverse outline, which is so helpful for me. I'm like, oh, I could see everything. It's so clear now and like it just like works. And I get to move everything around and play with that. But yeah, and as for speed, I think it depends. Like I'm usually really fast. I'm not fast like that. I'm not like the month fast because I'm not a plotter, but I am. I did get done with A Love Like the Sun in a month during NaNoWriMo. My other couple of books have been like probably 2 month books. So 2 months, like between 4 to like 8 weeks, I would say, are my garbage trash fire drafts. But the bad part is editing. I always have a lot of editing. It's like extreme. It's like I'm editing for like like we were doing past pages on A Love Like the Sun. And I was still editing. Like they were like, okay, you can't touch this anymore. I was like, are you sure? Are you sure I can't touch it? Like, please let me. So yeah.
Um, my process has changed pretty dramatically since my first book and my second, and now I'm working on number 3. And with my first book, I always have to rewrite my drafts. Like I always have a plan, and then I like give it to my agent or I give it to my editor, and they're like, not quite, and then I have to rewrite it, right? So I come up with the spirit of the novel pretty early on. I tend to outline, but it's a really rough outline. And I try to follow it, but half the time my characters don't oblige, right? Or something doesn't quite fit the way I thought it would. And so then I have to change things halfway through. So I give myself outlines that have some wiggle room, right? And then I pray that it'll actually work out. I do a lot of the drafting in my head though. I like to joke that like I dissociate into my stories like in real life for just escape from whatever situation I'm in action in reality. To try to figure out how I'm going to make 2 people kiss. so a lot of the thinking comes in my head, and because I draw too, so like I'm an artist, and I probably was sharing that more. I'm also a manga anime fan, like that's where I started as well, and so because of that, a lot of the character work is visual. So like a lot of times, like I will have drawn a character before I had really written them. So.
I don't mean to jump onto Shirlene, but I just wanted to add something that she didn't add about her process that's similar to James, yours, that she's on the go, like, so she's like just writing on her phone, which always like blows my mind. Just like Google Docs, like she's like, I got a whole chapter done. I'm like, what? Yeah, so.
That's incredible.
I write on my phone too, Shirlene.
Oh, you do too.
Ooh.
Yes.
I've drafted
So true.
14 books on my phone in my little notes app.
Oh my.
What app do you use? I'm a Google Docs girl, but
Yeah, in the notes app that came with the phone.
Wow, the notes app. That is
that's
like,
hardcore.
geez.
I'll do
Like
the
all those
conversation
pages
on my phone.
on thumbs. Like
I
you.
would.
Yeah, my little thumbs are going.
You need the swipe function. The swipe function really makes
Oh yeah,
it.
that's true. That helps.
Yeah.
I started that habit when I was in college because I would be writing on the shuttle, and then
Mm.
I would only have my phone. So then I just kept it up after that.
Love that. I love hearing all the different ways because I think what hinders a lot of people from even starting is they think they can't do it this one perfect way. So I wondered if you guys could all talk about, everyone could talk about how do you fit writing into your lives? Like when we see it on TV and movies, it's like romanticized. Like this is the job that the person has, and this is what they do, and they get to go live in Italy and write. Can you talk about how does writing fit into your life? But it looks like you have something to say about that.
I'm just like, no, you gotta fit it where you fit it. I mean, well, I do know people that actually get the time to like go on a bunch of writers retreats and stuff like that, and I'm just like, I'm jealous. But I have 2 kids at home, so mine's is just kind of like I gotta fit it wherever. So like it would be like I'm like I got an hour until pickup, which it's like super taxi pickup right now because my kids are teenagers. So it's like, yeah, it's a lot, like sports and all that stuff. So I think I just kind of like I'm just like I fit it wherever, and a lot of the times it's timers. So I'll just like put on a timer and I'm like 40 minutes. Like I have 40 minutes, and then somehow magically like I'll get what I have to get done in that 40 minutes somehow magically. But then there are other days where like I have to get stuff done because I am also, to be honest, a very last minute type of person. I was that kid in school that used to do their essays in the class before. That was like me. So there'll be some times where like I'm right before a deadline and I'm like 14 hours at my computer, right? Like I'm like 14 hours straight at my computer. Where that's like, like I'm like, feed yourselves, and like and then they're like, did you eat? And I'm like, no, but it's okay, like we cannot function right now, like have to get this done. So I just kind of feel like it's with me, I'm all over the place. I'm either 14-hour days and then or like 40 minutes like a day, you know what I'm saying, just getting it done whenever. I don't do like the 5 a.m.s or any of that stuff, like I've tried it, my brain is just like meh. And late nights are a little harder for me unless I'm on that like 14-hour window. Late nights are hard because my brain just, I don't know, after the afternoon it's like, don't ask me anything, don't, so that's me.
Yeah, I'm the same. It's just, every man for himself up there in my brain. I'm just like, you guys, we have a book to write and I feel like together we can do it, but I don't know how or when. So, but yeah, no, it's just like whenever I have a moment, and I always have like a couple different things that I'm working on. So I try to like delegate, my ADHD. I'm just like, all right, well, at least if we're going to be wandering, let's think of something productive, hopefully. And then I'll just type it. And some days it feels like I'll get like 200 words done. I'm just like, you know what? Those are 200 good words. So I'm okay with it. I make peace with it. But then some days I'm just like, you know what? If I don't hit like the word point that I'm actually trying to get, I will not have a book. So we just got to just throw it all on there and hope that some of it makes sense. But, I do try to set aside time. I also don't do the early mornings. I don't see how anybody can do those early mornings. Honestly, I'm not productive that early at all. I can't even, I'm just like, I'm writing a book. Like, no, that's not, that's not a thing. But I do really late nights. Like I don't go to sleep until like 3 or 4, just because, it's hard to when I have that many ideas going on, but I also I can't sleep if I know I haven't done like what I felt like I should. So I think it's just guilt that compels me for the most part to get books done.
I can go. I recently had a change, so I quit my job and I'm a full-time writer now. Yay, thanks. It's actually, we'll talk about it. So I used to be a receptionist, and so I wrote in between seeing patients. So like I would say, hey, how you doing? Your therapist is over there. Sit down, wait, let me write real quick. So that's how I wrote most of my books. And I wrote a lot on the weekends, usually not when I got home from work because I was just so tired. That was always my problem. I would get home and then I'd have to cook and then I have to eat and then it's like 9 o'clock and I'm like, I don't want to write. I've done everything already. But now I'm a full-time writer now, and I found that I can only write about 3 or 4 hours a day, and then I'm like emotionally and like mentally spent. So I don't know. I had like glamorous ideas that I would be like an 8-hour normal day, but like I can't do that. So then for 4 hours I'm like staring at the wall. So I think I'm actually gonna go back to work and do like a part-time job just because I feel lazy. I don't know. And the extra money will be nice because like writing doesn't pay that much. But yeah. So that's my current process.
So I'm a full-time author. I have been since I wrote my first book. And yeah, it sort of just happened one day. It's just like I hated my job. My husband's like, you should quit, write that book you were talking about. And I was like, okay. And then sort of just never went back. But I'm not really all that consistent. It's a lot of times feast or famine. Sometimes I'll go a month where all I want to do is play video games and not think about anything. And then for like 2 weeks straight, I just fixate on an idea and I just pump it out. It's just like all I can do right now is write about this emotionally unstable dragon, and I will not be spoken to until the entire book is done. So it's whatever my mind wants to do. Every time I try to force it to do a schedule or whatever consistently I try to force upon it, it's just like, to hell with you and that schedule. We're going to do what we want. So at this point in my career, I've sort of just learned to let it ride.
I have like 4 jobs, and one of them is a medical trainee. So I don't have a lot of time, and like my schedule is all over the place. So I like write in stolen moments most of the time. So whether that's like, yeah, when I'm walking around the hospital between patients, and like when I do have my days off, which are now more frequent than they used to be, like I'll like be like, hey, Riss, let's do a writing sprint, and we'll just do like just to keep ourselves focused. Do like 30 minutes, then talk for 10, like, and then 30 minutes in. And then the book 10, and then the book kind of like because I often am doing so much of the formulation in my head over the course of the time that I can't be writing, like I tend to be quite productive during those stretches. I'll get a few thousands and at those times. Yeah.
Yes, thank you all for sharing your process. I love that it's different, that we're getting different perspectives, and I hope that people who are like, needing to be inspired see that there isn't one way you make it work for you. Since I'm going to drop off, I do want to say I've been so fed by being in community with all of you, and thank you so much, and I'll look out for all of your books.
Wait, before you go, let's get a smile so we can get a picture really quick. Everyone smile. So we're not looking crazy, because I can catch you. Cross-eyed. Thank you so much, Jonterri, for moderating.
Thank you, Jonterri.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you so much. This was amazing.
I'm going to ask the panel 2 last questions, or 1 last question. I'm going to see if the audience has any questions just to sign off. I am so full with this conversation. I appreciate it so much. I love that you guys have completely different lifestyles, but you're all managing to get your work done and get these books out. So my question comes, I think I'm going to go with craft, because I know there's going to be some writers watching. You have children, you have 4 jobs, which is crazy. Like there's a lot going on. This question is for each one of you. What do you think is the most valuable skill someone can have as a writer? And are these skills a necessity to being a writer? because you all have so completely different, you all have a different perspective. So I feel like I would get different answers with this. Go ahead.
I'd like to start. I think the best thing that I have found out as a writer is nobody's in the draft room with you. Stop freaking out.
Yeah.
If you're enjoying yourself, chances are your readers are going to enjoy it too. It's really easy to get in your head in this profession, and in that imposter syndrome could eat you alive. Trust me, I felt it in my core. But again, no one's in the draft room with you, and do what you want to do. That's why you have editors, better readers, people around you who are going to tell you if, like, hey, this idea isn't working. But they can't tell you that if you haven't finished the draft.
True.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna add on to that because I feel like it goes with that. I think someone gave me that advice early on, like that, like you just have to keep on putting the words down. So I think that's not. I feel like it's not a craft skill, but it is like a skill, right? Like you have to just keep on being willing to write the words, no matter what they look like, no matter what it, I mean, I wouldn't say what it feels like because like Kimberly said, like you want to have fun and stuff, but I mean sometimes it doesn't feel good and you still have to keep on putting the words down, right? So I think that would be my advice. Just keep on writing it. That's it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I feel like saying it feels a little corny, but it is like perseverance, I think that's the only thing that separates, writing or even wanting to write a lot of times to actually like having a book written,
Right.
is the actual writing, and that it's easy to lose sight of the fact that you actually have to write something, because there's so much that goes into the process aside from the writing part, especially like in the publishing industry, there's so many other pieces to it, but you do have to write. And so if you can just keep doing that, eventually, you put enough words down and you finish a book. And having that perseverance to, if you don't know how to write, like when I started, I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I wanted to do it and I kind of had to do it. So, I learned how to do it. And if you have that, perseverance and you learn the things that you don't know and you practice them and things like that, that's going to get you a lot farther.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all are gonna say kind of the same thing. It's tenacity and like, I think if I'm gonna go a little bit off script, even though I think that's probably the one most important thing, because lots of people want to write books, but not too many people actually get the book done. I will say to be better, a dorky answer is to study. Like for me,
Yeah.
to be willing to actually look to those who came before, and see what is already out in the world and like learn, to take feedback, right? And like really try to understand it, like learn how different story structures work, etc. Like I think that there's innate talent, obviously, but most of us were readers before we were writers, and I think there's a reason for that.
Yeah. Everybody took all of my answers. Everybody has really great answers because the first one that popped in my mind was perseverance.
Mhm.
And then study. So
Sorry.
so my third option is I would say you have to learn this is specifically for traditional. So you have to learn the difference between art and when that art becomes a product to be sold. That was my hardest swap over. Because I spent like years writing my first book. I loved it. I knew these characters like the back of my hand, and then I sent out 64 queries and I got 64 no's. And that process crushed me. It felt like, people don't like me. They're like, Jessica, you suck. Like your book sucks, you suck, you're a terrible person, stop writing. But that's not what rejection means. It just means that this is not the right book for me right now, because we all serve the almighty dollar, and the almighty dollar was not really feeling it after the big zombie boom of The Walking Dead. So, that's just part of it. I keep these processes separate and sacred. So my writing process is sacred. I keep that close to my chest. I'm in my own bubble. I surround myself with people who are encouraging. But once that book becomes a product, which means when it is sold, I have to flip over and I have to think about marketing. I have to think about who is the type of person besides me who will love this. I have to think about strategy. And also, I need to keep my tail off of Goodreads because that's not for me. That is for somebody else. That's for the reader. So if you can make that distinction in your mind, I think it's a lot easier for you to pursue it in a professional way rather than something that is very personal and very like, I guess if you write for your family or for your friends, of course they're going to tell you it's great. But then the moment you get feedback, you're like, oh, ooh, this career is kind of is not really for me. But if you can push through that feeling and know that your writing process is still for you and you write the books for yourself, I think that it'll be a lot easier to turn around and sell it later.
I feel like your responses should be extremely comforting for any new writer or any other writer in general that struggles with imposter syndrome to hear, because like I said, you all have different backgrounds, a different environment, but you all stated that it's pretty much the same. It's perseverance, it's study, it's your diligence. And I think that's inspiring. I think that's something that's going to maybe help people relax. I'm going to wrap it up with one question. I don't see any audience questions. So this last one, because I want to know, I want you to try to answer it in 2 short sentences. What does success when it comes to your writing career mean to you? How do you define it in regard to your career? I'm going to call on person that looks the most confused first. No, just kidding. Jessica, how about you?
Yeah, you would call on me. Okay. I would say I would feel like, oh gosh, okay. 2 sentences. I need a little more than 2. So to know about me, I grew up very poor. So for most of my life, the dollar is what I'm concerned about. But I don't actually want that much. I just want a house and a dog, and that's it. Like, I will feel like I've made it when I have a house and a dog. So I'm not there yet. I live in an apartment right now. But you know what? When I get there, I will feel like that's it. That's I've made it after that.
I'll jump on just because I also grew up poor. And I think like that has been a big thing for me too, just like being able to like sell my work for money. Like I'm like, yeah, this is, to be able to build a career around that and take care of my kids with this career and this thing that I love. So yeah, that's my answer too.
I'll be honest, I'm the same way. I wanted, sorry, interrupt you, but I also grew up mostly poor, and this is the first time I have been comfortable. I don't have to look at my bank account and worry every time I want to do something. I want to maintain that. I'd like to get to the point where maybe I'd only have to write 1 book a year, so I'm not constantly running myself ragged. But for once, I'm fine, and I want to keep being fine.
Yep, that's the goal, being fine. You can go out to eat. You don't have to be like, okay, I only have like $15. Like that's it. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
James?
Yeah, I think 2 sentences. To be able to tell the things I want to say to the people that I want to say them to, and then to not have to worry about money anymore, whatever that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Shirlene?
I think to be able to continue to write like what I want, when I want, and be able to sell it. And to like be able to like I like to have messages in my fiction, so being able to have an audience that resonates with whatever message, like a consistent audience, right? Like a cult following, to be an auto-buy author for like a concentrated enough group of people that like I can do this forever. That's basically the dream.
Yeah, that's amazing, guys. So that concludes the Lift Ed Book Festival. I want to applause. Look, I wish I had a horn. So I just want to thank the audience for joining, the people that are going to be watching this on YouTube, on Instagram Live. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys want to stick around, I'm going to populate you to the green room and we can say our farewells and goodbyes. But guys, thank you so much for checking it out. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Bye.
Right.
Thank you.